Hi, I'm Dan Puzo, custodian here at the Crystal Lake Public Library. And recently we've been receiving a lot of questions concerning why it costs so much for changing lighting, some of the air conditioning and heating issues and that sort of thing. And I want to take a step back and talk about the root of these problems, where they arise and why they're so difficult to solve. When this building was first built, it was built in 3 sections, and the first part of the building was built in 1965. That section of the building is right behind me. It was built on unstable ground, and as subsequent sections were built, this section before me was built in 1984. When this section was added, it was discovered that the floor needed to be lowered to accommodate mechanicals in the ceiling. Behind me is a ramp that goes from this section of 1984 to the 1965 section, because there was not enough room above the ceilings in the 64 edition or section to accommodate the mechanicals necessary for this 84 edition. So the floor was lowered to give slightly over 2 feet of space above this suspended ceiling that's above my head. That allowed for ductwork, mechanicals of other natures like plumbing, fire suppression, other electrical, but that was a bare minimum at the time for this section of the building. That space allows for ductwork, which is actually half the size that's required for this building. In addition to that, so, as far as the electrical and plumbing, etc., to move on to the next section of the 95 edition, all of these mechanicals were inadequate. So each section has its own heating and air conditioning units, its own plumbing and ejection systems. All of these are separate units that are cobbled together based on uneven floor planes. So you have this ramp behind me that allows for the space above this ceiling, but it's not adequate to continue on into the 95 edition. So all of these aspects are below really what we require. The lighting, per se, is not diffused. The ceiling is so low that when lights are on, they're focused in a small cone. When you go into a commercial building, like a restaurant, or a theater, or a box store, or a grocery store, you notice that and you can go and do this now, the ceilings are at least 10 to 12 feet high, some 20 feet high. Not only is that to allow for light diffusion in all the mechanicals, but it has a much more open and light feel for the people who are utilizing those facilities. Now, we'll get to even more problems. You see, all of these things are legacies. We were left with these issues because of the 64 or 65 original building. Outside, we have elevated entrances on both sides. The Paddock Street entrance and the parking lot entrance, they're elevated because these floor plates do not align, which does not allow for the entryways to be even. So you see, all of these issues tie together. The book drops are elevated for the same reason. So our legacy, the thing that we were left with from 1964, is unresolvable. It is the big question. Why is this way? Because in 64, that was what was needed, and there was not a legacy plan to facilitate further additions and further growth. So the question remains, why is it costing so much money? Well, quite frankly, and this is a decision that people need to make, do we want to leave a legacy that was left to us? Something, leaving things that are irresolvable? Or do we want a legacy that will carry on into the future for many generations come? A building that is adaptable, a building that accommodates all of the different aspects that we've discussed, or leave it as is? That's the question.